Now, since you have completed your hacking lab setup, now you're ready to go and learn about Kali Linux. Within the next section, we're going to do that, and after that, we're going to build up on our knowledge for ethical hacking tools.
Hi! Within this section, we're going to install virtual machines on our host computers. Before we go on and do that, I want to explain what is a virtual machine and why are we using them. So virtual machine actually lets us run some virtual computers on our own computer. So these computers might have different operating systems at once. For example, we're going to work with a Linux distribution called Kali Linux, most of the time within this course. And maybe you may think that, okay, I can erase my Mac OS or Windows from my computer and install Kali Linux instead. Yes, you can do that, but that's not the point. Because we're not gonna need Kali Linux only within this course, we will also need Windows and Metasploitable and other systems as well. And these virtual machines will allow us to work with them simultaneously within our computer, so we can simulate attacks in a safe environment. Since they are only virtual machines, we can delete them anytime we want, we can refresh them, we can reinstall them anytime we want as well. And also, if we make something wrong and make our operating systems crash, they will be recoverable. We will learn how to get snapshots and get back to them whenever it's needed. And they are completely free since we are going to use VirtualBox in this course. So it's essential for us to work with virtual machines in order to efficiently complete this course. So let's stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to learn how to install them on our own computers. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to install the VirtualBox on our Mac OS computer. So if you're using Windows, and in the previous lecture, if you installed the VirtualBox on your machine, you may skip this lecture. So we're going to use the VirtualBox in order to run virtual machines. Actually, VirtualBox is not only way to run virtual machines, but it's the best way if you want a free tool. So if you're using a VMware, for instance, in your own computers, you may continue to use it and you may install the VM versions of the virtual machines that we're going to install in the following lectures. But if you're not using any paid tools, you're more than welcome to use this free tool by following this lecture. So open a browser and go to google.com, where you will Google VirtualBox, okay? It will lead you a website called virtualbox.org. So if you click on it, it will lead you virtualbox.org, where you will find the latest version of the VirtualBox. So they may change this outline in time, of course, but there will be always a download section from here or here where you can click and go to the download page of VirtualBox. In here you will see that VirtualBox platform packages have an OS X hosts. So click on this OS X and it will start downloading for you. And it's around 200 megabytes right now, so it will take a minute or two, so feel free to pause the video and once it's finished, come back and see how it's installed. After your download is done, you may just go to your downloads or wherever you saved it, okay? So let me minimize this. I'm not going to close this because we're going to download one more thing later on. So I'm going to go to my downloads and find the VirtualBox file that I have downloaded. So if I double click on it, it will pop open the VirtualBox installation setup for me. So once it's opened, it's fairly easy to install this. All we have to do is just follow the guidelines, okay? So it will ask you to double click on this package, okay? And once it's done, it will open the installation wizard for you. When you see this picture in here, you may click continue and just hit continue and install. It will ask you for your password or fingerprint, just supply this and it will finish the installation part for you. So it will be quick, and once it's done, you may say close. And after that, you can go to your applications folder from here and search for VirtualBox. Of course, there's another way to do that. Let me close this and show you how it's done. Right now, we don't need this file, so I'm going to say move to trash, and I'm going to say eject VirtualBox from here. If I hit Command and space on my keyboard, it will open the search for me where I can search for VirtualBox and hit enter. When you do that, it will pop open the VirtualBox for you. Most probably you won't see this list in here because I have existing virtual machines. So you will see a blank left pane in here. When you're going to install the virtual machines later on, it will be filled up in here as a list for you as well. So don't worry about that. But you have to do some settings before you go on and use this VirtualBox. So whether you go here to VirtualBox Preferences, or you can just click on Preferences from here to access the settings. We are first interested in the extensions. So I have an old one in here. I'm going to delete it, okay, by clicking on this remove line from here, and it's going to ask me for my password. I'm going to give it. So most probably you will have a blank page in here as well, but maybe you may have an old version here as well. So all you have to do is just click on remove selected package from here and delete it, because we're going to install the latest version, latest extension version. So if you go to virtualbox.org one more time, you will see an extension pack download section in here. You may click on this all supported platforms link and it will download it for you. So it's less than 20 megabytes, so it's going to be rather quick. Once it's downloaded, you may go to your downloads one more time from here or your own Finder and double click on this extension pack. So it should ask you something like this, but sometimes it doesn't pop up. So I'm going to show you how to manually install this, okay? So let me say I disagree, and if it doesn't show you like it's supposed to be, you can click on this add new package from here, and remember we got this from preferences and extensions. If you click on this, you may select the extension pack that you have downloaded before, and now it's going to pop up for you. All you have to do is just click on this install and say I agree. So it's going to ask you for your password one more time, give it, and it's going to install it for you, and you will see the latest version installed in here. So right now you can click on OK, and now you are ready to use the VirtualBox Manager. But before we go on and install our virtual machines, there is one more thing that we have to specify in our settings. So I'm going to go to my preferences one more time, and here actually we have some settings like language. So if you're not satisfied with English, you can change it like I said before, but I'm going to go to network this time. So in here I have previously created networks, and you may have some of them as well, but I'm going to delete them from here. Okay, I'm going to say remove, and as I had done in the extensions part, I'm going to click on this plus sign, add new network, in order to create my network. So what does it do? It allows us to connect to the internet through our own host computer. So we're going to use some virtual machines like Kali Linux, and this Kali Linux won't have any internet connection unless we give it to it. So we're going to use this network in order to connect to the internet, and we're going to use this network in order to make our all virtual machines on the same network as well. So it will give us an opportunity to simulate some attacks on a real network. So it is important for you to complete this step in order to complete this course. So once you do that, click on OK. Now you're ready to go to the next lecture, where we will download some virtual machines and start them on our own computers. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to learn how to install Kali Linux as a virtual machine using VirtualBox on our computers. So I'm going to tell the rest of the course from Mac, because right now from this point on it will be the exact same points whether you have Mac or Windows. It really doesn't matter. And don't worry about these virtual machines in here. Of course you don't have them in your machine right now. Since this is my main computer, I have them, and you will have them when you complete this lecture and the following lecture later on. So, next step would be for us to download Kali Linux from internet and install it on our VirtualBox. In order to do that, open a browser. I'm going to open Safari from Mac. You can open whatever you want from Windows as well. All you have to do is just Google download Kali Linux VirtualBox. Okay, download Kali Linux VirtualBox and hit enter. It will take you to a website called offensivesecurity.com. If you click on it, it will take you through the Offensive Security download page. So Kali Linux is a distribution of a Linux operating system, and it contains penetration testing, ethical hacking tools inside. So this will be a complete operating system where we conduct our penetration system tests, and when we do all the attacks, when we simulate all the attacks inside within. So Kali Linux is brought by Offensive Security. So we are going to download it from offensivesecurity.com. So if you scroll down, you will see VMware images and VirtualBox images. And as you might guess, we are now interested with VirtualBox images. By the way, this look of this website may change in time, but it doesn't matter. All you have to do is just go to the download section, download page, and look for VirtualBox images. So within here, we have two options, whether 64-bit or 32-bit. It depends on your own host machine. So if you're on a 30-bit computer, you may download this one. And you're on a 64 computer, you have to download this one. So if you're using torrent on your own computer, you may choose to download it via torrent, but you may just click on this and it will just start to download it for you. It will download an OVA file, okay? The extension is OVA. And this is 4 gigabytes. In order not to make you wait, I have already downloaded it before because it may take like 30-40 minutes depending on your internet connection. So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to use the one that I have downloaded before. And remember, you have to find the VirtualBox images, not the VMware images. Of course, if you're using VMware for some reason, then you might want to download VMware image as well. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to open my VirtualBox. So where I have downloaded mine in downloads folder. So this is the one that I have canceled. So let me move this to trash, and it is inside my virtual machines folder. So choose a place for your download because you may not want to change this later on. So choose your place carefully, place it under downloads, place it under documents, because if you move them later on, it will be problematic for you because you will have to just do some extra settings in order to make this properly work. Okay, so choose a place right now, and then there are two options to install this. First, you may want to go to the downloaded file, okay, where you placed it, and double click on this OVA file. If you double click on this, it will pop open this window for you. But again, sometimes it doesn't pop up. So I'm going to show you how to manually do that, okay? You have to go to your settings. In Windows, you can see it in here saying import. In Mac, you can go to the menu from file and say import appliance. And you can say import appliance from Windows menu as well. So we are trying to import the device that we have downloaded. All we have to do is just select that OVA file from this folder here. So click on this and find the downloaded file, okay, and select it. And then you may say continue. Once you do that, it will give you some default values in here. Don't worry, we can change them later on. So I'm going to say import, and it will try to install and import everything for me. It will take a couple of minutes, so feel free to pause the video and come back after it's done. Once it's installed, it will add it to the list. So this is the one that I have currently installed. Okay, if you click on this, if you go to settings from here, you may access the settings of the virtual machine. Now we are not in the settings, we are not in the preferences of VirtualBox. We are inside the settings of this Kali Linux machine, okay? So let me tell you what we can change. As you can see, we can change the name from here, okay? I'm going to just use this default one, and if it's not Linux and Debian 64-bit, you have to choose it. Of course, if you're in a 32-bit machine, and if you have downloaded the 32-bit image, it will look like 32-bit here and it's okay. But if you're on a 64-bit machine, and if it says 32-bit here, then it won't work. You have to choose Linux from here and Debian 64-bit from here. Now, sometimes, even though you're on a 64-bit machine, and even though you have downloaded the 64-bit image, it doesn't show up here, even though you choose the list, okay? It doesn't show up on the drop-down list. And the reason for that, you may need to enable virtualization on your computer. So there is something called virtualization technology, and it enables us to run these virtual machines. So sometimes it comes turned off on your system. And it isn't clear for everyone how to turn on, because in every operating system, in every processor, it has some different instructions. Best way to do that is to just get your operating system and processor name, okay? Suppose that you're on an Intel machine, i7, okay? Then you have to go to Google, like this, and say how to enable virtualization in Windows 10 Intel 7, for instance, i7. If you Google it, you will have so many results, you will have so many tutorials telling you how to enable virtualization. I'm not going to show you how to do that because it may need to go to BIOS settings and you have to turn your computer off and on in order to do that. So I cannot properly record that, but it is fairly easy to do, and all you have to do is just Google this and find out how to enable virtualization. And most of the time you won't have to do that, okay? I'm telling you just in case you get any error regarding virtualization, or just in case the 64-bit doesn't pop up in here. So this was the most important setting. Then let's go to the system. And in system, you have to choose what kind of RAM you want to allocate to the virtual machine. As you can see, I have an 8 GB RAM in my computer, and it suggests me to allocate 2 GB of RAM. So you have to optimize this thing, because if you give too low, okay, like this, 4 MB, it won't open. And if you give too much, then there should be nothing left on your own computer, then it won't open again. So I suggest you start something like 1 GB. It's like 1024 megabytes. And Kali Linux actually runs good on 1 GB of RAM. If you have 8 GB, you may choose to give it 2 GB as well. But if you have less, like 4 GB, you cannot give more than 1. Because later on in this course, within following sections, we're going to use Windows and Kali Linux at the same time. So I'm going to leave this in 1 GB. Later on, let's go to the display where we can see the video memory, and it's better to leave this as suggested, as default value, okay? If you go to storage, you can see the OVA file that you have imported from here. And if you go to network, then here you have to choose the network that you created previously. As you can see now, this is attached to NAT. I have to select NAT network, and from here I have to select that NAT network that I have created before. Later on in this course, we will see the other options like bridge adapter. We will use this bridge adapter when we use USB Wi-Fi cards within our systems. But for right now, I'm going to choose NAT network. From here, you may want to add some USB devices to your Kali Linux machine, and we are going to do that later on in this course as well. When we deal with USB Wi-Fi cards, we're going to use this USB section. But before you go and start the Kali Linux, make sure you select NAT network, make sure you just adjust this RAM, and in here in the system tab, there is also something called processor. In here you may choose how many processors you want to allocate to this virtual machine as well. and Kali Linux runs on one CPU efficiently. Kali Linux is actually a very efficient system. So you can click OK after you do these kinds of settings, and you can go here and say Start. It will open a new window for you where it will just run the Kali Linux. You have to wait until it's running here. So you may want to minimize this, or you may want to maximize this window as well. It doesn't matter. I suggest you wait until it's opened, then you maximize. And it will take a couple of minutes, especially if it's the first time you're running this. As you can see now, it asks for a username. So let me make this into a full screen so we can see it better. Once you see that screen in here, you have to give root as username. And before we go on, the password in the next section will be tur, okay? The exact opposite of root. So I'm going to give root as username, and I'm going to give tur as password and hit enter. So this will be our default account when we use Kali Linux, and we're going to see how to change the password later on. As you can see, this is now Kali Linux. This is going to be our main operating system when we deal within this course, and we're going to see how to use this Linux, how to use this Kali Linux in the next section. But for right now, you're okay if you manage to run this Kali Linux. You may want to close it down. All you have to do is just click the closing sign in here, and you can say save the machine state. It means that don't turn off. Whenever I click start, just pop this on. You may want to say power off the machine as well. It will just turn off the machine for you, and you may want to go to your virtual machine and hit start to start it again. So if you come to this point, let's stop here, and within the next lecture
Hi! Within this section, we're going to build our hacking lab. Because we want to work in a safe environment and we want to do tests as much as we want during this course. So that's why we're going to use something called virtual machines. And don't worry, I will explain what is a virtual machine during the lectures, and I'll show you how to install it and use it on your computer. And don't worry again, because this is completely free. And after doing that, we will be ready to learn about ethical hacking and do some safe tests in our hacking lab setup. So now if you're ready, let's get started. Hi! Within previous section, we have already installed our virtual machines and we have run Kali Linux. But we didn't really discuss how to use it. Within this section, we're going to learn the basics of Kali Linux, and we're going to learn some basic Linux commands. Because I have already explained that Kali Linux is a version of Linux. We call it distribution. And we specifically use Kali Linux for penetration testing purposes. We're going to see how to use Kali Linux, the overview of general user interface of Kali Linux, and also some comments regarding to Linux and specifically Kali Linux. And finally, we're going to end this section by learning how to change Kali Linux password. Now, if you're ready, let's get started.
Hi! Within this section, we're going to show you how to work with Kali Linux. As you can see now, I have two virtual machines here. I have deleted the others because we're going to need to work with Kali Linux and Windows from this point on. Later on within this course, we're going to install the other machines as well when we are going to need them. Okay? So click Start and open your Kali Linux, and you may want to close this down and say root for your username and say tur for your password. Later on, we're going to see how to change that as well. Don't worry. After you open the Kali Linux, you may want to just maximize this window and make it into full screen. You can say go to full screen from here or click maximizing icon from your desktop. So here we have our desktop in Kali Linux. As you can see, this is our desktop. We may put some files or folders if we want. And here in the left pane, you can see some applications, some files and folders. As you can see, the first one is the Firefox. This is the browser when we use to go browse the internet or when we want to go to another website. Okay? And we're going to test our internet connection later on. But for right now, you can just close this and say close tabs. Here we have the terminal, and we're going to use that a lot, and we're going to see how to use it in the next lecture. If you click on files, you may want to browse the files and folders in your computer, in your Kali Linux. You may want to go to the desktop. You can go to the documents like we did before. If you download something, you can go from here to the music or pictures. You may want to go to documents downloads from left pane as well. So this is standard folders and files application in Kali Linux. I think you're used to this from Windows and from Mac OS as well. So nothing strange in here, just files and folders. And also, in the left pane, we have other applications as well, like we have Metasploit framework. So these are some tools that we use for penetration testing, some hacker tools to penetrate into other systems. And we're going to see how to use that in the following sections, okay? Right now, we are not interested in any of this. So just know that this is kind of a pane that gives you some desktop icons. If you click on them, it will open the related application for you. For example, this is LiftPad. This is something like a text editor. You can click on it and just write some text notes and save it as a text pad or notepad in your own computer. If you click on here, show applications, it will pop up a window to search for applications and browse the other applications that doesn't show up here. And you may reach those applications from here as well. As you can see, these are categorized into categories like information gathering, vulnerability analysis. So these are the tools that I was telling you all about when I say the Kali Linux comes pre-installed with a lot of tools for penetration testing. For example, we have Nmap in here. We're going to use it later on. For example, we have some wireless attacks like AirCrackNG, and we're going to see how to use many of them later on in the course. And we can reach them from here in this menu. By the way, even though we have those menus in here, we're mainly going to use the terminal rather than these graphical user interfaces here. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Don't worry. I'm just going to show you the overview of Kali Linux in this lecture. In places, you may see home desktop downloads again, like we seen in the files application. Here we have workspaces, and this allows you to work within many workspaces. Like if you open something like documents or files or folders in here, we are now in a workspace. Now, if you click on workspace 2, it will create another workspace which has nothing on them. Okay, if you click on workspace 1, it will take you back to the current state in your first workspace. We're not going to use this very much. It's something like show the desktop in Windows, but it's useful sometimes when you work with many files, folders, or terminals simultaneously. Okay, so you may want to just click close in here. Now we are okay to go. If you click here, it will open the settings for you. And as you can see, we have the volume here. Okay, you may want to increase or decrease the volume from here. Now it says wired connected because now we are connected to the internet through NAT network. And it's kind of a wired connection to our host machine. As I said before, NAT network provides us the internet connection through our host machine, and it acts like a wired connection. So think of it like that. You're connecting your Kali Linux with your host machine, with your own machine, with a wire. So we have our account here, root account, and you may want to change the settings from here. You may want to click on this, okay, settings button, and it will open all the settings for you. So maybe you may want to change the keyboard or language from here, or you may want to customize the way you work, like the background or the notifications or the account, mouse and touchpad. Like this is a standard settings pane in our operating system. So I believe this is now done. Let me test my internet connection from Firefox. Let's open the Firefox and try to go to google.com. Okay, just open this and type google.com. Okay, w.google.com, and if it's connected, then it means that you did NAT network thing right. So let's stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to see how to use commands within Linux. Within this lecture we're going to see how to work with terminal. And terminal lets us run commands from within inside Kali Linux, and when we run these commands, we actually tell Kali Linux to do what we tell it to do, and they execute this command and return us the result. So what do I mean? Let me show you. If you go to this terminal, click here, it will open for you, and you can just go here to view and zoom in if you want. I'm going to do that in order to make it clear to you. And when you type commands in here, it will get executed by Kali Linux. Like what? If I say ifconfig, for example, and hit enter, it will tell me the latest IP configuration of my Kali Linux. And these values do not matter right now, okay? You don't know how to read this, I know. But what I'm trying to tell you, when I type a command in here, it will get executed by Kali Linux. For example, if I write clear and hit enter, it will clear the screen for me. And also, we can use this terminal to browse through files and folders within inside Kali Linux. For example, if I type pwd, it will show me the current working directory. So I'm in the root folder right now. And the root folder is this folder. When you first click on files, you see the home folder, which is the root folder. So if you type ls in root folder and hit enter, it will list the current files and folders in that root folder. As you can see, I see the exact files and folders when I click on here and browse this, and when I type this to my terminal. Suppose that I want to go to documents folder, okay? I have to say cd and bring a space here and type documents. And it has to be exactly the same with capital D and documents. If I write this with lowercase d, it won't work. It has to be exactly the same, okay? If I hit enter, it will go into the documents folder. Now if I type ls in here, it will show me the content of the documents folder. In order to confirm this, I can go to here and click on my documents folder. Now I see this content that I see in here. So I have previous files in my documents folder. If you don't have anything, when you type ls, it won't give you any result. For example, let me show you what I mean. Let me close this down. And there is a command for creating a new folder. So it's exactly the same thing as right-clicking in a folder and saying a new folder, okay? And it's called mkdir. So it stands for make directory. After you say make dir and type your test or your folder name and hit enter, it will create this folder for you. You may type ls to see the current contents once more, and as you can see, we have now the test folder in here. Now I can do cd test and hit enter to go into that folder, and if I type ls, it won't show me anything because test folder doesn't have anything inside it. Okay, so maybe now you're understanding what I mean. So let me run clear one more time. So right now I'm in the test folder. What if I want to go back to documents? I can type cd and bring a space and then hit ... And if I hit enter, it will go back to the documents. Now if I want to go back one more time, of course I can do cd ... to go back to my home folder. Then maybe I want to go to desktop, and I know the desktop is there. If I just write des and hit tab, it will autocomplete it for me. So if I hit enter, now I'm in the desktop. And if I run ls, it won't show me anything because there's nothing on my desktop. So let me go back to my home folder one more time and type ls. Now let's suppose I'm going to go into downloads, okay, say cd downloads, and as you see, it auto-completed it for me when I hit tab. Now let me clear the screen. So not only you can browse these files and folders with this technique, but also you can run the commands and applications from inside the terminal as well. What do I mean? We have our leaf pad in here, right? So if I click on it, it will open the leaf pad for me, where I can write some things like test, 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 and save this as a text file. But I don't want to save it. And I don't want to call this from here. Maybe I'm trying to open an app which is not placed in here, but I have to go to here and search for it. Rather than that, I'm going to type LiftPad in here and hit enter, and it will open the LiftPad for me. Now if I type anything here like test, and if I save this file from here to my downloads, for example, and say test, and hit enter, it will save it for me. Now if I close this down and type ls in my downloads, I can see test. In order to read this file, there's a command for that as well. All you have to do is just type cat, okay, cat test. And if I hit enter, it will show me the content of that test. So it reads the file. So let me hit enter one more time to have a clear line, and let me run clear. So if you hit up arrow in your keyboard, it will show you the latest command that you have called. And if you just hit it one more time, it will show you the previous command, and goes on and on. You can use the upper arrow and down arrow in order to just browse the latest command that you have called in your terminal. We're going to learn a lot of commands throughout the course, so I'm not gonna waste so much time in here. I just wanted to show you the feeling of this terminal. And when you freshly install a Kali Linux, it's always a good idea to update the files and folders and libraries inside of that Kali Linux. In order to do that, you have to call something called apt-get, okay? So let me type what I mean, apt-get. So we use this command in order to download some modules, download some repositories, and we're going to learn how to do that within the next sections. But for right now, we're going to use this command in order to update our Kali Linux. First, I'm going to call apt-get update and hit enter. And as you can see, it's now reading the packages and it's updated for me. And since I'm using this Kali Linux all the time, it may have been a little fast for me. Maybe it will take some more time for you. But after you run apt-get update, I suggest you run apt-get upgrade as well, and this will complete our upgrade and update process. However, as you can see, I got an error. Not necessarily it means that you're going to get this error as well. I know exactly what this error means, but I'm going to show you how to deal with errors in general cases. So when you have an error like that, all you have to do is actually copy this error, okay, and go to google.com from Firefox and paste it in Google to search it. So there are a lot of resources on web telling what kind of an error is this and how to deal with it. So let me paste this error from here and click enter. As you can see, I have a lot of results here, so let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. As you can see, I have something from ubuntu.com, I have something from TechMint, I have something from FAQ, forge.com, and everything. So let me go one of them. You can browse the other ones. As you can see, some people asking, I'm getting this when I run apt-get. This is exactly what happened to us, okay? And let me go down to the best answer in here. It says that, okay, I have something that might resolve your issue, okay? And there are a lot of other results as well. They are all trying to explain what this means and explain how to resolve this. So let's try one of these actually. Let's go back to the best result in here, the one with the most voted results. So let me copy this, okay, and go back to my terminal and paste the command and try to hit enter. As you can see, it got executed without an error. So let me go back to other commands here as well and copy them and paste them in here, and it got automatically executed for me. So these commands actually removing the log files in my computer, and these log files block me to run these apt-get commands. So maybe you don't know, or maybe you didn't know how to do that, okay? So maybe you don't know what rm means. It stands for remove. So when you type rm and then a name, a file name, it removes that file. But not necessarily it means that you have to know every command. When I get an error, I went to the internet, I read about explanations and possible solutions. I'm not gonna spend so much time on it, but I just wanted to show you if you get an error at any point in the course, you may find answers very quickly on the internet. And of course, if you cannot find any answers, you may come to the Q&A section and ask them to me. So when I try to run apt-get upgrade again, as you can see, now it's running. So it says to me, you want to continue, say Y for yes and N for no. I'm going to say Y and hit enter. And since it's going to download a lot of packages, a lot of upgrades and updates for my computer, it may take some time. So you better pause the video here and continue to the next lecture where we are going to learn how to change our Kali Linux password. Hi, within this lecture, we're going to learn how to change our Kali Linux password. So I'm going to say clear in order to clear the screen, and I'm going to explain why do we need to change our password. As you can see, we are using the default root account, and the default password for root account is tur. So everybody knows it, and it's not safe to use this in our own virtual machines. Actually, when you use Linux, it's advised not to use root account at all, because it has all the authority, it has all the permissions to do everything in your account. So maybe you are using Linux in order to run a server, okay? And if you get hacked or something, if the hacker reaches your root account, he or she may change whatever she wants to change, okay? But if you use a less privileged account, it means that they cannot change anything unless you give them permission. But we are not going to change our username because it may lead to other complications. It may create another responsibilities, another additional commands that we have to run. We're going to continue using root, but in order to make this a little bit safer, we're only going to change our password. In order to do that, I'm going to write passwd. It means that change the password. And if you hit enter, it will ask you for a new password. So type your new password without giving it some special characters to avoid any confusion, I suggest. Okay, some people may suggest otherwise, but I suggest you use some letters and numbers only. So I'm going to give it, and as I type, it won't appear here, but it's typing. If I hit enter, it will ask me to retype that new password, and I will type it again. For security reasons, it won't appear here, but it's typing. As you can see, it says that passwords do not match. I couldn't do it. Let me do it one more time. Let me try it one more time. I'm running passwd once more, and I'm trying to give the same password this time. Okay, I'm going to choose very simple password, and as you can see, it says that password updated successfully. Now when I close this down and when I re-enter my Kali Linux, rework my Kali Linux, I'm going to give the root and my new password to get in. Now I cannot log in with password tur. I'm going to have to give my new password. And after you complete this course, of course you may want to create your own account and you may not want to use root. Then you will have to use the command add user and bring a space here and type your new account name. But I don't suggest you do that right now. It's sufficient for us to change the password only. After you complete the whole course, you may create your own user. So if you manage to come to this point, let's stop here, and within the next section, we're going to see how to be anonymous when we go online.
Hi, now you know how to run Kali Linux in basic terms. Don't worry, we're going to practice so much in Kali Linux, then you will remember and you will know what to use, when to use, and how to use in the following sections. Don't worry, we're going to practice them so much. And within the following sections, we're just going to dive into the action. We're going to see how to be anonymous online and then we will follow up our curriculum in the following sections as well. So now if you're ready, let's get started in the next section. Hi! Within this section, we're going to learn how to be anonymous online when we use Kali Linux. Maybe you have dealt with VPNs and DNS servers before, but it's a little bit different in Kali Linux, and we're going to see how to do those kind of stuff in Linux as well. And after this section, you will be able to edit DNS configurations and use VPN books in Kali Linux. So now if you're ready, let's get started.
Hi! Within this section, we're going to learn how to stay anonymous when we go online. And before we do that, we need to understand how networks work, actually, in order to comprehend better what we are doing. So let me tell you all about it. So suppose that you're in your home and you're connected to your router. So you have different phones or tablets or computers in your home, right? And they're all connected to the router, and they are all connecting to the internet through that router. And when you go to the internet and search for anything in Google, for example, you're sending a request from your phone to your router, and router forwards this request to the internet and gets back a response and forwards that response to your device. So this device has some local IP, like 192.168.0.10. And this IP is assigned to that device by router actually. As you can see, every device has its own local IP. And router has its own local IP, like 192.168.0.1. But if these devices are connected to the router directly, they will have 192.168, but if they are on a NAT network, like in our case, they will have an IP of 10.02.15. This doesn't have to be necessarily that way, but this is general convention, and you will come across this situation most of the time. So if you try to get your own local IP on your own computer, you will end up with a number like this. And if you try to get the local IP from your virtual machine, you will end up with a local IP like this. But the important part is that this router has also a public IP. You may know your public IP by going to the google.com and searching for what is my IP. This is the IP address that hackers try to change when they go online. This is the IP address that you must not share with anyone. And this is the IP address you have to change when you try to go to a blocked website by your internet provider. And this is the IP that you may want to change when you try and do some penetration testing. So you're about to change the public IP using some virtual private networks within the next lectures. So VPN stands for virtual private network, and you're going to use some other server to connect to the internet and make your IP look like another. And this IP is the public IP, as I said before. You may go to Google right now and try to see your own public IP. I'm not going to show you mine, but I can show you my local IP, and you can follow me how to learn your local IP as well. You have to go to your Kali Linux machine, for example, and if you type ifconfig here, like we did before, it will show you something called ETH0, and this is your internet interface, okay? You're connected to the internet by a wired connection, supposedly. So you're using NAT network right now, and this is a wired connection between the Kali Linux and the host machine. So host machine is actually the router at this point, and you have the IP address of 10.02.15. Of course, this number may differ in your case, but it really doesn't matter. This is your local IP. So you can try to learn your public IP, like I said, by going to google.com and searching for what is my IP. So within this section, we're going to search for ways to hide this public IP and try to go to the internet using another servers, another public IPs. So let's stop here, and within the next lecture, we're going to learn how to do that. Hi, within this lecture, we're going to understand the usage of DNS. So we have talked about the IP addresses, we have briefly talked about virtual private networks as well, but we didn't talk about DNS. So DNS stands for Domain Name System, okay, or Domain Name Server. So it allows us to connect the domain name with the IP address, okay? So websites have IP addresses as well. So google.com actually has its own IP, or facebook.com actually has its own IP as well. And when we type google.com to a browser, it finds the IP address, it matches the IP with the domain name and try to go to that IP address. And this matching thing is done with DNS servers. So generally, when you go to the internet, when you browse the internet, your internet provider's DNS server do that for you. And even if you change the VPN, even if you use a VPN and try to change your public IP, there's a risk that your internet provider knows what you're doing because of the. Within this lecture, we're going to learn how to change our DNS servers in Kali Linux. And in order to do that, I'm going to first show you how to get our current status of DNS. Maybe you remember that we use cat command to get the contents of a file. So I'm going to cat this file, etc.resolve.conf. You have to exactly write like this, etc.resolve.conf. And it gives you the current DNS server in your Kali machine. As you can see, it says name server 192.168.1.1. And we're going to change some file. And after that, we're going to run this cat command once more in order to understand whether it's changed or not. But bear in mind that it won't always work. Sometimes when you change the DNS address, it won't get effective immediately, but rather it gets effective after you introduce VPN to the system. I know it's a little bit complicated, but don't worry about it. I'm going to show you one step at a time. So in this first step, we're going to change our DNS inside of Kali Linux. In order to do that, we're going to change a file. And in order to change this file, we are using a command called nano. So nano is actually something like LivePad. Okay, it allows us to edit files. It's kind of a LivePad, but it has some other features as well. So follow me by writing this nano etc dhcp dhclient.conf, and it has to be exact again, nano space etc dhcp dhclient.conf. If you write this wrong, then it won't open it. Okay, it has to be exactly like same in here. And we're using nano, and we're using nano to edit this file. As you can see now, I see the content of etc dhcp dhclient.conf. So this is a configuration file for our DH client. We can change this configuration in order to change our name servers. So you can use arrows right now in order to move around this nano editor. As you can see, as I press down, it goes down. As I press up, it goes up. And I'm looking for a line starting with prepend, like here, prepend domain name servers 127.0.0.1. First, you have to delete this hash here. It means that this is a command and it won't get run unless you delete it. Don't forget to delete this hash. After you delete, it will start to get run once we save this file. So after this domain name servers, we're going to add some new values here. So I'm pressing shift, or you can go to the end of this file and delete everything, but there is a semicolon at the end. You must not delete it, okay? You have to delete only the 127.0.0.1 thing. And right now, I'm going to find some new DNS servers. In order to do that, I'm going to use old friend Google. So open the Safari and search for DNS servers, okay? I'm going to search for free open DNS servers because there are some paid DNS servers as well, but I'm looking for a free one. So if you do this, let me close this pop-up windows from here, okay? And as you can see, we have a lot of options in here. There is a public DNS server list, there is an open DNS, best free public DNS servers. There are a lot of options. And let me choose one and try them, right? Let me click on this open DNS. And after that, let me maximize these windows so we can see it better. And actually it says me change to English. I believe it's made this query in another language. So let me go to OpenDNS one more time to see some results. And maybe it got your attention that we already have some results in here, like Google DNS, DNS Watch, and others as well. But let me go into this website and see the whole list so we can search, we can select from one another. So let me scroll down and try to find some new DNS servers for me. As you can see, now we have some results, we have some providers, and we have some primary DNS servers. So I'm going to use them and I'm going to just try them. Of course, I can change anytime I want, right? If they're not active, I can change. And I can use up to 3 DNS servers at one time. So I'm going to actually include 3 of them. It will be more effective. So if one doesn't work, the system will go for another automatically. So copy it with Ctrl+C and come here and paste it with Ctrl+V, or just right-clicking in here, and you have to add a comma after this and leave one space. You can then copy the another one, okay, this very sign one, and go to root Kali again and paste it, and add one more comma and one more space, and I'm going to copy this Google thing, and this Google thing has been active for like years, so you can safely use it anytime. So we now added 3 DNS servers. Now we have to write out, so you have to click Ctrl and O, and it will ask you to hit enter. After you hit enter, you can go out of this nano editor with Ctrl+X, okay? So after you hit Ctrl+X, now we managed to change this dhclient.conf. So in order to test this, I'm going to say service network manager, okay, and restart. So this will restart my internet connection. Whenever you got stuck at a point that you're not connecting to the internet or something, you may try to reboot your computer, or you may try this command, service network manager restart. Now I'm going to cat this etcresolve.conf to see if my configuration has been really changed. Now, as you can see, I have my new DNS servers in here. But as I mentioned before, if you don't see these name servers, don't worry, it will come after you introduce the VPN like we do in the next lecture. But if you see them, it means that these name servers are now changed, and the system will try this one, and it fails, it will go to the second one, and it fails, it will go to the third one. So we have a good safe DNS setup right now. And of course we have to test this to see if we really have the internet connection right now. In order to do that, I'm going to just ping google.com to see if we get a response back. As you can see, now I have a response back. So we can stop here, and within the next lecture, we're going to see how to change our public IP with VPN usage. Hi, within this lecture, we're going to see how to use VPN within Kali Linux. As you might remember, we changed our DNS server within the previous lecture, and before we go on and use the VPN, we have to disable something called WebRTC. Actually, WebRTC is used within your web browser when you try to communicate to a website, but it may leak your real public IP when you use this VPNs. So if you type about config and say, okay, I accept this, it will take you to the config website of your browser, and you have to search for media.peerconnection.enabled. As you can see, the value is true right now. If you double click on it, it will be false. And we want it to be false. This way we can disable the WebRTC. As I mentioned before, it works out fine. If you go to google.com, it will work out fine, but we eliminate the risk of leaking our real public IP when we use the VPN. So we turned off the WebRTC. Now the next thing we do is to find a VPN book. So in order to do that, I'm going to Google free VPN book. Okay, so we use VPN books within Kali Linux in order to use VPN services. So there are a lot of websites for that. I'm going to use this vpnbook.com, so this is mainly working, and of course you may want to browse the other websites as well, but I generally use this vpnbook.com and it works. And under this vpnbook.com there is something called OpenVPN, and we want that. Okay, let me maximize this so you can see it better. Under OpenVPN there are a lot of servers, and we have to choose one and download it and try them. So I'm going to choose some Germany VPN from here, or US VPN. You can choose your own country. As you can see, you may want to connect from Canada, you may want to connect from US. It really doesn't matter, but sometimes specifically you may want to connect from US, then you can choose this US one. Okay? And of course they don't always work, so you may want to try another one if they don't. So after you click one of them, just say save file, and it will download this zip file for us. It's a very small file, 9 kilobytes, so it will be downloaded instantly. So let me close this down and let me go back to my downloads folder. Okay, of course we can do it from terminal, right? I can go to downloads by typing cd downloads, and if I say ls, then I will see the zip file. I can use unzip command to unzip this VPN book. If I type VPN and hit tab, it will autocomplete for me, and if I hit enter, it will just unzip it for me. If you type ls, you will see the contents of this file. And we have some files with OVPN extensions, and these are the OpenVPN books that I was talking about. As you can see, we have 4 of them in which zip. So these are the TCP and UDP connections. These are just the protocols that we will later on in this course learn what they are all about. But they are different protocols, but they do the same thing. They connect to the internet. And you can try any of them whenever you want. Okay, you can try the TCP, you can try the UDP, it doesn't matter. And in order to try this, you have to type OpenVPN and VPN book name. Okay, so in my example, I'm going to try this VPN book, US1 TCP 443 OVPN. And of course, you have to spell that out correctly. After you hit enter, it will ask you for a username and a password. And I wish I didn't close the website, but I believe we can find it one more time. So let me go to VPN. Yeah, it was vpnbook.com. If you go to vpnbook.com, to OpenVPN tab from here, it should say the username and the password. And as you can see, the username is VPNbook and the password is this. And this password changes all the time, so you have to find your own password, okay? You have to look it from the website, not from the video. So I'm going to type VPNbook, and I'm going to type the password here as well. So after I do that, I will hit enter, and it will run the VPN for me. Okay, so if it fails, then you have to check the password, and if it's really connected, if it's not working, then you have to try the other TCP and UDP VPN books that you have downloaded, and if it doesn't work as well, then you have to find another VPN book from the same website and from the other websites. So let me test this connection by going google.com. Of course, it would be slower than your original connection, but as you can see now, it works. Now let me test and see if it really changed my public IP address. Best way to do that is to type what is my IP to Google. If you type what is my IP and hit enter, it will show you your current public IP. And as you can see, I have this 198.168.2.204. And this is not my original public IP, so it's really changed. In order to confirm that, I'm going to search for some test, and it's called DNS leakage test, okay? DNS leakage test. So if you search for it, there's a website called dnsleaktest.com. Of course, there are other websites as well. You can try all of them. If you go to this dnsleaktest.com, it will show you your current location and your public IP. I'm not in the United States right now, and I don't have this public IP. So this VPN really works for me right now. And I changed my DNS, now I'm completely anonymous. But bear in mind that there is no thing such as 100% anonymity. And I accidentally closed this website, so let me open it one more time. Okay, so as I was saying, there is no guarantee that you won't be found in the internet. So don't trust your VPN or DNS. The officials, when you commit a crime, can track you down anyway. Okay, so whether you use very good VPNs, whether you use very hidden DNS servers, it really doesn't matter. Don't try to do something unethical. Okay, so this is an ethical hacking course. And if you click on standard test or extended test here, it shows you whether your real public IP will occur or not, whether it's leaking or not. But I believe this is good to go right now, so I'm not gonna do that. You can do it on your own. So let's stop here, and within the next lecture, we're going to learn how to browse dark web.
Hi, now you know how to use VPN books, how to change DNS records in Kali Linux. And within the next section, we're going to discuss how to browse in dark web. And you will need this VPN book information most probably in the next section. And you're not going to use any VPN books afterwards, but since dark web is a little bit difficult to reach using conventional methods, most probably you will need these VPN books. So now if you're ready, let's meet in the next section.